G'day, this is Captainoob, and this is an X12, which is basically a futuristic Glock from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the new one. This is yet another weapon port, so it's not entirely dissimilar to a different version of the same weapon that we looked at along with the SR2, but this one might be a little bit more narrowed in focus and potentially a little bit different. We'll see what works and what doesn't, and we'll make our judgments to see which is the superior Glock, but it'll be an interesting thing to look at, I believe. Now, let's just get one thing very clear. We're going to separate the artist from the art here. You don't want to be like those idiots who think Harry Potter's going to kill children or something, do you? Good, okay. Now we've all grown up. Let's just have a discussion. No, it's a monologue. It's me talking here. Let's just look at the weapons and mods for what they're worth and keep all of the politics, drama, and bullshit out of it. Sweet. All right. So, what you were looking at here, it's a Glock. We've already been over that. It's got custom animations, very similar to that on the Call of Duty game. Also, the sounds have been ported from the game. And we'll get into the attachments because there's not much else I can really talk about. So, with the receivers here, you get an option for an X13 version, which just changes the color to a more of a beigey type color. I think it looks a lot better in black, so we'll attach on the advanced receiver here. And most of these particular receivers, the modifications have the same sort of similar vanilla descriptions that you get in the game. So I feel like that's pretty nice because the other mod had a bunch of COD-based descriptions, which potentially, if it was the modder's intention, just have the gun straight from Call of Duty, that's fine, but what it meant is that a lot of the descriptions of what the attachments do was just kind of invalid and not really describing of how the weapon would perform in game. So they've just gone ahead and made them with the just standard descriptions on them. So it'll give you a little bit more of a better idea of how the weapon's going to perform, as well as the stat bonuses and the weapon card presented. Now, you can have this automatic using the X13 auto barrel. Obviously, that changes the slide to a more beigey color. So if you want to get that to match, you got to use the X13 receiver along with that. But we're going to make this a two-tone Glock because that's going to piss off someone somewhere. Interestingly, you get a bunch of extra damage whilst using the commando version of this, the automatic version, that is. And if you decide to use a semi-auto one, you'll get extra range, of course, but the damage per shot will be a lot less. So I'm thinking the DPS on the advanced automatic one will just be so much higher than basically whatever else you can put on this thing, which I think is quite an interesting prospect because looks like we're heavily encouraged to go full auto here, but for a Glock, I'm sure that'll be fine. So this one has the standard grips that we saw on the other one, but they've all given you improved per shot recoil and improved recoil control. So something in the way of like a recoil compensating stock or something like that. Again, more vanilla type of attachment naming or descriptions here. Gives you a little bit better idea of what the thing's going to do. And if you know what this game is and you've used the attachment system before, you can recognize that's going to reduce recoil because it's basically the same description as you'd find in the vanilla game. You could throw a big old jump in this because reloading sucks, man, even though the animations have been done particularly well here. We'll get to those in a second. But you can throw on a bunch of reflex sights. A lot of these you've seen before. But we're going to go on and throw in an SZ Mini. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's no glow sights. I really like there to be glow sights on this thing, but they haven't seen fit to add those in, even though you can probably do that just by dual rigging a few vanilla assets there. Although there is a little bit of glowing in the sights there, just a tiny bit of tritium in there to make them all nice and glowing up. Now you can attach a bunch of muzzle brakes and suppressors on this. The suppressors, of course, have the same sort of description as you'd expect a suppressor to have in vanilla terms, and the compensators will reduce your range like vanilla guns, which is not good. Actually, the suppressors will increase your range, which is not like what vanilla guns do in this game because they just they reduce your range as a balancing thing, but in real life, extra barrel space, that bullet's got a little bit of extra time to soak up all of that gunpowder explosion. So unless you're using subsonic rounds, it's probably going to be a little bit more consistent over range with a elongated suppressed barrel. Now, you can increase the rate of fire, but not if you're using the automatic variants using this lightning fire trigger. That's the best in terms of rate of fire. If I switch back over to a single fire version, yeah, 199 in the fire rate, probably as fast as you can pull the trigger, like an old Jacob's gun from Borderlands 2. And you can throw a bunch of lasers, which only have the word shiny in their description. Yep, that seems good. It'd be nice if they told you that they're going to increase your hipfire accuracy, but I suppose we could just infer that because that's how they work in other games. You can increase the speed of the reloads to make your reloads faster, get your sustained DPS over a longer period up. Pretty nice thing. And if you don't like the damage, which we're seeing a much better, more balanced approach to damage compared to the other version they looked at, you can increase this damage all the way up to 230, which is a little bit more on par, slightly more balanced, but for what it's worth, I think we're going to go ahead just with the 139 here, which I think that's more powerful than a standard vanilla game assault rifle, if I remember correctly. But yeah, there's one of our Glocks, a little bit of an abomination, but we'll make some more. On your chemistry workbench, you'll find weapons-X12. There's actually 2 of them, so you can't miss them. And this is the way you can actually craft this thing. You've also got an option to craft the X13 Auto for the same amount of parts. So if you want something auto out of the chemistry station factory for none of the modification costs, you can make that choice. So that's a pretty interesting thing there. I thought they were different weapons, but it's just the same thing, just with different setup of attachments and crafting them. You'll need gun nut rank 3 and the items that you see on screens: plastic, screw, spring, steel. Righto, so here we are outside of the Immersive Gunners Plaza. I'm going to risk it and try to do this with a pistol with more balanced damage than what we've seen, but there's a couple of elephants in the room I need to discuss before we get started, and those gunners will probably take out a couple of those pesky insects over there. So the third-person animations unfortunately haven't been done particularly well, and you probably did notice this from the video's thumbnail because I put Iris in a pose to do this, but your gun will sort of point towards the ground there, and it's not super noticeable looking over your character's shoulder, but if you had, say, a companion with this thing, or if you're using it more of in a third-person manner, you're going to notice it if you're using this thing in VATS especially, because there's lots of close-up shots for VATS crits and stuff. Secondly, and this might just be because there's 2 magazines happening at once during the reload, the extra magazine is stored what was usually below ground, where you couldn't ever possibly see it normally, but if you have the weapon in more of a passive idle stance where you're holding it to your hip, by the way, speaking of hip, there's no compatibility with classic holstered weapons, so you can't have a big eye on your hip in this case. But if you do have it in an idle stance, that magazine will be showing. Not sure whether you can drop that even further or just send it 10 miles below you in a direction where you'll never see it, but that just does support this reload animation here, which you'll see an extra magazine just sort of pops in. It sort of comes in through Iris's elbow through a forearm to complete that reload. But that's what the reload looks like in first person. Same thing happens. It's a little bit more subtle when you're not using a drum magazine. The extra mag just sort of pops up out of nowhere here, but looking over your character's shoulder, you won't even notice that during combat, especially if you are watching where your actual bullets are going. This one here has the standard sort of single fire animations, and it's got some bashing animations too, which aren't going to blow up a car in one hit. But this one, in comparison to the automatic one, is going to be significantly weaker. And also, it's got a tactical reload thing. I've got the tactical reload mod installed, but I have to install a secondary mod to get the keywords working. That's not a mark against a mod, that's just an annoyance. I hate tactical reload. There, I said it. And here's the last one that I made. The reflex sight likes to jump off the pistol a little bit in third person, but other than that, it's pretty good. I'm going to apply the keywords to these weapons to make sure I can actually reload them, but we'll get started in a sec. Okay, so hopefully the frame rate is stabilized a little bit now that I've been standing around here, but it's gonna take some thinning out of the gunner ranks before we see this frame rate return to a stable 60, which it currently is not. But we'll start off with this cheeky little place where you can just remain in stealth forever. Hopefully we can get away with it. But if we want to use VATS, this is the perfect time to do so, because I can't see what I'm shooting at, and if you're watching on a phone screen, you surely can't either. There we go. What I might do here is just... Oh, everyone's moving super fast. Hang on a second. No. Yeah, sometimes that happens. If you pull out of VATS, you've got the cinematic kill mod for Fallout 4. what'll happen is the cinematic slowdown will happen, but then like the VAT slowdown will be cancelled when that wears off, so that's fun. Anyways, we're gonna throw some criticals at these guys as fast as possible. After the fourth or third target, they should be automatic crits. There's the I think that's a 10 mil round thing going there. And I think at this point I've officially been detected because I'm not getting sneak criticals anymore. Okay, yes, it's time to actually begin as I get stuck on a bloody traffic light. Still causing trouble even after the Great War. Bastards. Anyways, so we've got a big magazine here. We've got a weapon that can produce a fairly decent amount of lead at a very short time. And I'm noticing now that the rate of fire seems to be faster if I'm aiming down sights with this thing, which might mean there's some animation tweaks that still need to be made in first person here, but I think the reload animations are slightly better due to the fact that they're just not super fast, not sort of blink and you'll miss it type of speeds. Now, whether these have been made to sort of get ready or sort of they've made to work with the quick hands perk, the VATS perk. No, that's not a VATS perk, but you can use it in VATS in the later ranks. Okay, we can't find that guy behind the tree. That's fine. We'll apply some criticals just to guarantee that extra little bit of damage. And we've got a third here. We may as well use it. Oh, there's a guy behind the tree. Well, I got him anyway. That's fine. A little bit of extra penetration there. But yeah, maybe the mods have been... The reload animations have been set up to be slightly compatible, where it's not a super fast reload. Looks just that little bit smoother. I guess you could call it extra immersiveness. Anyways, let's move over to the next Glock. This one here has a standard magazine, which means it's going to take a mag and a bit to reload if we're inaccurate with our shots, which is no good. But it looks a little better. Probably could have used the extended mag on this in retrospect, but yeah, this is a proper looking Glock that isn't got a bunch of attachments over it that would be possibly bordering on impracticality in real life. And we could use this time to gather up a little bit of extra crits as we move on to our next targets there. It's almost time to get into Nerd Rage. Hey, the shots are faster in third person as well. This is a weapon problem that's happened quite a lot. Even with the vanilla game weapons, sometimes the rate of fire changes depending on... That's elite work from the gunner. A quick switch to a anti-material rifle to a no-scope. But yeah, sometimes the different viewpoint do alter what animation speeds and the rate of fire as a consequence. So that's kind of amusing when that happens. Anyways, we'll go ahead and use our semi-auto version here, which is significantly less powerful than our auto version, but just to show it off, there's quick hands in VATS, by the way. You just get a free reload. So if you get into a position where you've got a Nerd Rage and you've gone through a 50-round magazine somehow, you can sort of step around that in a way. Possibly could have used some sort of calibrated powerful receiver on this to just increase that extra crit damage, just to give me a little bit of an extra edge. We should be alright to shoot this guy. There you go, that second shot was a lot more successful somehow. Lastly, we've got the loud and proud version of the semi-auto version, just to show you what it's like. And I'm just hammering on the trigger as fast as I possibly can, because 28 damage to the torso, that ain't gonna do it. We gotta go for headshots here, otherwise we're going to get out DPS'd. Not to mention the fact that, okay, we cancelled a reload somehow. Okay, the pressure's off now. We've achieved the next level, but the damage here on the semi-auto version, it's, no, bad. 40 damage is not gonna cut it. Also, it looks like the magazine is rocking back and forth. Probably not secure in the mag well there. You might want to give that a little bit of a tap before you begin firing again. The last thing you want is your mag to drop out of your weapon whilst you're firing, because then you look like an idiot and then you'll be out of bullets. You gotta put a new fresh mag in. So, not a flawless weapon, of course, but there's potential here. A couple of things need to be fixed. Maybe this is not the case, but it does feel like this one could could have been a little bit more polished before it came out. Maybe signs of it being slightly rushed on its release, for whatever reason that might be. That rate of fire and recoil go. We're kind of pushing it over here. At least that's a legendary gunner though, so she's a little bit tougher than the rest of her brethren. That gunner over there, he might just be in range. We'll just hit him up in bats a little bit. Perfect. That worked out pretty well. A quick 3-round burst to the head. They won't survive that for too long. So it looks like we're just cleaning up the supplementaries at this point. We've got that full health bar pretty much ready to go. But we've got to get nice and close to make this thing really worth using. That's for sure. So we'll try to pick our targets a little bit more wisely. These ones I think we can probably nail up top. I wonder if there'll be a perk one day in a Fallout game which will give you an extra aim bonus if you're at a higher elevation than someone. Is that too much XCOM in your Fallout, maybe? Maybe that's a perk that someone can make. I don't know how you'd have to use the external perks that they'd have in, like the Fallout 4 New Vegas thing, where they regress back to the old ways of having numbers, abstract numbers being increased every level up, which doesn't work for a 3D action real-time platformer. Platformer? No. Action RPG. You could put platforming elements into Fallout. I wouldn't object to that. You just have to make the movement controls a little bit better than they were in Fallout 4 and 76, and especially Fallout 3 and New Vegas. They were dog shit in those games. Say what's not dog shit though, the DPS of a suppressed automatic version here. That definitely passed the test. The other ones have been a little bit underwhelming by comparison, but I think you get the idea. So it's a pretty good Glock mod. A couple of things need to be polished and tightened up, possibly through further updates this will be slightly more refined, but hopefully that's the case though, because there's potential here. But if you don't like this mod and you want to see a Glock that's already finished, done, here and now, obviously different, then you can just download the little add-on on the SR25 mod, and you'll get a Glock right here, right now, which is, in my opinion, just slightly better. And as we finally kill this Protectron Basilisk struggling, we're getting hit by railway spikes here. Sometimes you'll see them added in the very top of the corner of the screen, added into your inventory, which I think is kind of metal as fuck. But yeah, there we go. That's my personal thoughts on it. I do think that the Warfighter one is superior, but there are merits to having both. I do like that the descriptions on the modding table are that of a vanilla. You get actually more of an idea of what the thing's going to perform like. So there is a railway spike sticking out of your leg. It is not bleeding at all. That's probably missed an artery. Otherwise, you'd be knee deep in blood right now. That's gone all the way through. Not a single flinch. Wow, you're built different. They make him tough in the Children of Adam. Righto, so I think we can fit in one quick monster fight before we end the video, and I think we've got a good chance here. It's a decent enough weapon to do the job, but the trick is just getting as many sneak attack criticals as possible, and the occasional stagger helps too. We actually got we got a stagger chain just then, and we're actually able to mow him down to his mutation stage pretty much already. Now he is now pissed off at us, but we've gotten most of the job done already, and we can sort of dance around this little sand dune here in order to keep him nice and at bay. And it looks like we get staggers fairly regularly with this thing, which is pretty nice. But that is going to cause problems if he does that. No more hits. I'm not allowed any more extra hits. We'll get that reload in quick hands. And to give you an idea of how much the rate of fire shifts, when you go into first person and aim down sights, it's a pretty gnarly amount. But with a bunch of cheeky little staggers and a bit of nerd rage help, we've managed to triumph over enemies. And we've done it with barely even a scratch. Look, if we can take a railway spike through the femur, I don't think a little ghouly scratch is going to cause much issue here. So there you have it. That there was another version of the X13 Glock. So if you like to see this version in your game, check out link in the description. If there's going to be an Xbox mod port, it should be down there. But if you want the alternative version, which I prefer just a little bit, the Warfighters version will be linked in the description as well. That's packaged along with the SR25, and whether that actually makes it to a standalone Xbox port, I'm not sure. Hopefully it does, because I do like it when the Xbox people get their mods as well. It's unfortunate that their mod troubleshooting capabilities are a lot more diminished because they don't have a proper app or thing to facilitate that. I've got a lot of comments recently about modders not being able to get their mods set up properly because they're missing requirements, and I'm guessing the Bethesda mod launcher or mod thing, the one that they made for that, is not entirely clear at most of the time, so troubleshooting is a little bit of a pain in the ass on Xbox. But bro, just get a PC. It's just better over here. You don't even have to have a typically expensive PC to get Fallout 4 running, even at the minimum graphics. This game came out in 2015, that's like 8 years ago. You could probably find something. And on that note, thank you very much for watching. Iris Companion Mod, check her out in the description too.